Welcome to the deep dive. Let's just face it, the news about extinction. It can feel pretty overwhelming sometimes.
It really can.
But here's a number that, well, it really grounds things. Nearly 500 species gone just in the last decade.
Yeah, that's quite stark.
And the predictions, I mean, they're talking anywhere from 200 species a year, maybe up to 10,000 species lost globally every year.
It's a huge range, but even the low end is staggering. It's a powerful reminder this isn't some far-off possibility. It's happening now, accelerating, really.
Exactly. So for this deep dive, we thought instead of just throwing more stats around, let's try to understand the real weight of this.
How so?
By focusing on 6 specific animals right on the edge, we'll look at their stories and, importantly, the efforts being made to pull them back. We're drawing a lot from the work Defenders of Wildlife is doing here.
Okay, that sounds like a good approach. And it's worth remembering, right, that we do have tools that can actually work.
Like the Endangered Species Act.
Exactly, the ESA. I mean, think about the bald eagle or humpback whales, even gray wolves in some areas. The ESA was crucial for them. Those are genuine success stories.
Absolutely. But those stories also show it takes constant effort, doesn't it? Because the pressures, they just don't stop.
No, they don't.
We're talking about, unsustainable land use, habitats just vanishing or getting broken up.
Pollution, obviously.
Pollution, yeah, and the big one, climate change. All these things are pushing what they estimate nearly 1 million species towards extinction in the coming decades.
It's a massive number. A daunting prospect.
Right. Okay, so let's dive into the specifics. Let's start with an animal that's uniquely American, the red wolf.
The red wolf. Fascinating creature. It's actually a distinct species, not just a smaller gray wolf. Got that reddish tint to its coat.
And what's really striking is where it used to live.
Oh, yeah. Historically. Pretty much across the entire lower 48 states. Almost everywhere.
And now it's almost unbelievable. They've been pushed back so far. Their range has shrunk by, 99.7%.
Something like that, yeah. It's staggering. The only wild population now is just clinging on a tiny part of northeast North Carolina.
And the numbers? Heartbreakingly low. Around 20 individuals left in the wild. 20.
Think about that, yeah. Coast to coast, down to just one tiny corner.
And losing a carnivore like that, it has knock-on effects, right?
Absolutely. Ripple effects through the whole ecosystem. As a top predator, they naturally kept prey populations in check.
Like deer.
Like deer, exactly. So when the wolves disappear, you can see deer numbers go up, which might sound okay, but it leads to other issues.
It's more ticks.
More ticks, carrying diseases, potentially affecting people, yeah. And also overgrazing, which changes the plant life, and that affects other animals depending on those plants. It's all connected.
So what's being done? I know Defenders of Wildlife has been involved for a long time.
Decades, really.
Yeah.
Since the 1960s. A lot of advocacy, public education. Then, more recently, I think it was 2016, they actually hired dedicated field staff down there in North Carolina.
Boots on the ground.
Right. And they've also had to use lawsuits sometimes, to push for stronger protections under the ESA.
And has there been any good news? Any signs of hope?
Actually, yes. A really bright spot just this year, 2025. They reported the first wild litter of red wolf pups born since 2018.
Wow, that's huge after 7 years.
Incredibly significant. It really shows that the captive breeding programs are working and that public support does make a difference. Even when things look really, really bleak, dedicated effort can turn things around, or at least give them a fighting chance.
That's genuinely hopeful. Okay, let's shift gears. Another iconic North American species facing huge hurdles, the California condor.
The condor. Just picturing that massive wingspan, 9 feet, is incredible.
It really is. And their historical range, like the red wolf, was vast.
Immense. British Columbia down to northwestern Mexico, and thousands of years ago, evidence suggests they were even out East Texas, Florida, even New York.
Hard to imagine now. They're restricted to just a few spots, right? California, Arizona, Utah, Baja California.
That's right. Fragmented populations.
And their role in the environment, just as big as their wingspan, you could say.
Absolutely. They're scavengers. Nature's cleanup crew, essentially.
So they eat animals that have died.
Exactly. Which is a vital service. It prevents the spread of disease, keeps the ecosystem clean. Without them, carcasses would linger much longer, causing potential health problems.
But they're still critically endangered, despite all the conservation work.
They are, unfortunately. It's an ongoing battle. One of the biggest threats is lead poisoning from lead bullet fragments. When they feed on carcasses left by hunters, they ingest tiny pieces of lead, and it's highly toxic to them.
Ah, right. That makes sense.
They also ingest things people leave behind, like small bits of plastic, glass. They call it microtrash. That causes big problems too. And of course, habitat loss is still an issue.
So what are the key actions to help them? Promoting lead-free ammo seems crucial.
Absolutely vital. And encouraging everyone who goes outdoors to practice leave no trace, ethics, pack out everything you pack in, reduce that microtrash.
And Defenders is involved here too.
Yes, they work with various partners. One interesting angle is looking at alternative energy projects, like solar farms. They work to ensure these projects are sited carefully, non-invasively, so they don't disrupt critical condor flight paths or habitats. It needs a really multifaceted approach.
Yeah, sounds like it involves everyone, conservation groups, agencies, hunters, the energy industry.
It truly does. Collaboration is key.
Okay, moving on. Let's talk about the San Joaquin kit fox. Now, this is the smallest fox in North America, right?
That's right. Tiny little thing, but ecologically really important. It's what we call an umbrella species.
Umbrella species. What does that mean exactly?
Well, basically, the kit fox needs a specific type of habitat, those grasslands, scrublands, wetlands in California's San Joaquin Valley. By protecting the habitat the kit fox needs, you end up protecting lots of other plants and animals that live in that same environment too.
Ah, so protecting the fox kind of throws a protective umbrella over everything else living there.
Exactly. So saving the kit fox helps save many others. It's an efficient way to think about conservation.
But their habitat, it's getting squeezed, isn't it? Urban sprawl, agriculture.
Very much so. It's becoming increasingly fragmented. And a major threat, tied to the agriculture especially, is pesticides.
How do pesticides affect them?
Well, the pesticides are used to control rodents and insects, right? But those are the kit fox's main food source. So the pesticides either directly poison the prey, reducing the fox's food supply, or the toxins build up in the prey animals and then get concentrated in the foxes when they eat them. It's a double whammy.
That sounds bad. And I read something troubling, that despite being listed as endangered, they don't have designated critical habitat.
Yeah, that's correct. The U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service hasn't formally designated critical habitat for them, which is, well, it's a key protection usually afforded under the ESA. It raises questions about priorities.
So what are groups like Defenders doing?
They're focusing heavily on protecting and restoring the native grassland habitat the foxes rely on. There's a big push to restore about 13 million acres of rangelands in the Central Valley overall, and about 1 million of those acres are considered absolutely crucial for the kit fox's survival.
1 million acres? That's a lot.
It is, and with fewer than 7,000 kit foxes left, the work is incredibly urgent. Time is really of the essence.
It really shows how protecting habitat is so fundamental.
Okay, let's shift from the land to the ocean. The North Atlantic right whale. This sounds like a species in really deep trouble.
Tragically so, yes. They are one of the most endangered large whale species on the entire planet.
Why? What happened?
Primarily commercial whaling back in the early 1900s. They were called the right whale to hunt because they were slow, floated when killed, and had lots of blubber and baleen. They were decimated.
And they never recovered.
They haven't. Their numbers are perilously low, fewer than 350 individuals left today.
Wow! Fewer than 350. Where do they even live? They migrate along the east coast of North America, feeding grounds up near Canada and New England in the summer, and then they travel south to calving areas off South Carolina, Georgia, and Florida in the winter.
And that journey, it puts them right in the path of danger, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. Two of the biggest threats are ship strikes, collisions with large vessels, and entanglement in fishing gear, particularly ropes from crab and lobster pots.
Just getting tangled up.
Yeah, it can injure them severely, prevent them from feeding or swimming properly, and often leads to a slow, painful death. Then there's also increasing ocean noise from things like offshore energy exploration, seismic surveys.
How does noise affect them?
It disrupts their ability to communicate with each other, to navigate, to find food, to find mates. For animals that rely so heavily on sound, it's incredibly stressful and detrimental. All these factors hit their reproduction and survival hard.
You mentioned something intriguing in the notes, the whale pump. What's that about?
Ah, the whale pump. It's a really cool ecological concept. Think about it. Whales, like the right whale, often feed deep down in the ocean.
Right.
Then they come up to the surface to breathe and also to, well, defecate. Poop, basically.
Like giant ocean gardeners.
Kind of. That waste they release at the surface is rich in nutrients like nitrogen and iron. They're essentially bringing those vital nutrients up from the deep ocean and fertilizing the surface waters.
And that helps.
It helps phytoplankton grow. Those tiny little marine plants, they form the very base of the entire marine food web. And they produce a huge amount of the oxygen we breathe. So by pumping nutrients, these whales play a critical role in ocean productivity and even global oxygen levels. Their decline impacts the whole system.
That's incredible. I never thought about whale poop being so important. So what's the strategy for protecting them?
Well, Defenders is pushing hard for things like the Right Whale Coexistence Act of 2022. The idea is to get more funding for research in developing new technologies like ropeless fishing gear, better monitoring systems, things that allow fishing and shipping to happen more safely alongside the whales.
Trying to find ways for everyone to share the ocean.
Exactly. They're also involved in legal battles, pushing the National Marine Fisheries Service to strengthen regulations, especially around fishing gear entanglements, and to expand the zones where ships have to slow down.
Slowing ships down reduces the risk of deadly collisions.
Significantly. So it's a mix of policy, technology, and legal pressure.
Sounds complex, but vital. Okay, let's head south to Florida, the Florida panther. It's kind of amazing to think they're the only pumas left east of the Mississippi River.
It is pretty remarkable. And they're also one of the most endangered mammals in the U.S. The population is tiny, maybe 120 to 230 adults left, mostly in South Florida.
And like the others, their range is just a fraction of what it once was.
A tiny fraction. Less than 5% of their historic range across the southeastern U.S. Habitat loss and fragmentation, starting centuries ago with settlement and development, pushed them into this corner. Overhunting played a big role historically, too.
But today, the biggest direct human threat is different, right? You mentioned cars.
Yeah, vehicle collisions are now the single largest cause of human-related panther deaths. In 2022 alone, I think 18 panthers were killed on Florida roads.
18 out of maybe 200 total. That's a huge percentage.
It's devastating for such a small population. It makes it incredibly hard for them to expand their range northward, which they need to do to truly recover.
And the panther, like the kit fox you mentioned, is also an umbrella species.
It is. Protecting the panther means protecting the large tracts of forests, swamps, and uplands they need to survive. And that protects a whole host of other plants and animals in the South Florida ecosystem. Plus, as a top predator, they help keep populations of deer and wild hogs in balance.
So Defenders has been working on panther recovery for a long time.
Nearly 5 decades. A lot of their work focuses on fostering coexistence between panthers and people. Education is huge, helping residents understand panther behavior, how to protect livestock, how to live safely in panther country.
Reducing conflict.
Exactly. And also protecting the remaining habitat and, crucially, the corridors that connect those habitat patches. They need to be able to move safely.
Which brings us back to the road problem.
Right. So advocating for wildlife crossings, underpasses beneath roads, and directional fencing to funnel panthers towards those safe crossings is a major focus. Those interventions have proven really effective where they've been implemented.
It really highlights that conservation isn't just about the animals, but about the landscape, the connections, and how humans interact with it all. Okay, one last species for our deep dive. The southern resident orca.
Ah, yes, the southern residents. A truly unique and fascinating population of killer whales.
Found where exactly?
Off the coast of Washington State, Oregon, and British Columbia in Canada. There are 3 main family groups, or pods, known as J, K, and L pods.
And what makes them unique?
Their diet, primarily. Unlike some other orcas that eat marine mammals, the southern residents are specialists. They almost exclusively eat fish. And their main prey is Chinook salmon.
Ah, so their fate is tied to the salmon.
Very tightly. And that's one of the biggest problems. There are only about 74 southern resident orcas left. Just 74 individuals.
74. That's critically low.
Okay.
And they face multiple threats.
Yes, a triple whammy, really. First, as you guessed, lack of prey. Chinook salmon populations have declined dramatically due to dams, habitat loss, overfishing, climate change. So the orcas are literally starving.
That's terrible. What else?
Second, toxic pollution. Chemicals like PCBs and flame retardants accumulate in the ocean environment, get into the salmon, and then get concentrated way up the food chain in the orca's blubber. This impacts their immune systems, their reproduction, their overall health.
And the third threat?
Noise. Just like the right whales, vessel traffic from ferries, whale-watching boats, container ships creates a huge amount of underwater noise. This disrupts their echolocation.
How they see with sound.
Exactly. It makes it much harder for them to hunt the already scarce salmon and to communicate with each other. Imagine trying to have a conversation and find dinner in the middle of a rock concert. That's kind of what it's like for them.
Starving, poisoned, and deafened. It's
Yeah.
heartbreaking. You mentioned they're an indicator species?
Yes. Their health and survival is a direct reflection of the health of the entire Salish Sea ecosystem. If the orcas are struggling this badly, it tells us the whole system is in trouble. The water quality, the salmon runs, the overall balance. They also hold immense cultural significance for the Coast Salish indigenous peoples of the region.
So what's the focus for helping them? Addressing the salmon issue seems key.
Absolutely. Defenders is heavily involved in efforts to restore salmon populations. A major campaign is advocating for the removal of 4 large dams on the lower Snake River in Washington state.
Because the dams block salmon migration.
They present huge obstacles for salmon trying to get to their upstream spawning grounds. Dam removal is seen as one of the most significant actions we could take to boost Chinook numbers and help the orcas.
And tackling the pollution?
Yes, through supporting legislation to control toxic chemicals and also through public outreach. Things like promoting rain gardens in urban areas.
Rain gardens, how do they help orcas?
They help filter polluted stormwater runoff from roads and cities before it flows into Puget Sound and the surrounding waters. It's a way individuals and communities can contribute to cleaner water. Little things add up.
It's clear, listening to all these stories, the challenges facing these 6 animals are just immense and deeply interconnected.
They really are. And it brings us back to that bigger picture. This isn't just about saving individual species, as important as that is. We are in a genuine extinction crisis.
The 6th mass extinction, as many scientists call it, driven by human actions. Thousands more species could disappear.
It's a critical moment in Earth's history, and it should definitely give us pause. Losing that much biodiversity, it has profound consequences for the planet and for us too.
But, and this is important, it's not hopeless, is it? We talked about the Endangered Species Act.
Right. There is a vital message of hope here. The ESA, despite challenges, has been remarkably successful. Over 95% of species ever listed are still with us today. Hundreds are considered stable or recovering.
So focused conservation work does make a difference. It can work.
Absolutely. It proves that when we commit resources and effort, we can turn things around. The survival of these 6 species and so many others is tied directly to the health of our planet. Biodiversity isn't just nice to have. It's the bedrock of the stable ecosystems we depend on for clean air, clean water, food, everything.
So for people listening who feel that way, who want to do something, what's the takeaway? How can they help fight this extinction crisis?
Well, one very direct way is to support organizations that are on the front lines, like Defenders of Wildlife. Their work, the advocacy, the on-the-ground conservation, the legal action, it all requires resources. It makes a real, tangible difference.
Is there a place people can go?
Yeah, you can check out their website. A direct link to support their work is defenders.org, support our-work. Honestly, every little bit helps fuel these critical efforts.
Okay, defenders.org, support our-work. That's a concrete action people can take. And maybe, as we wrap up this deep dive, here's a final thought to chew on.
Okay.
Given how incredibly connected everything is in these ecosystems, what seemingly small thing that we do as individuals might actually ripple outwards and have the most significant positive effect for endangered species? Something to think about.
Definitely something to think about.
Thanks for joining us on the deep dive.